The Mavic 4 Pro, without doubt, is a full professional drone. Honestly, I think if I was just looking for a drone to use occasionally, or I didn't do this as a full-time profession, it's a drone I wouldn't touch because it's just overkill in so many ways. That said, for a professional, it's probably the best one you can buy. Now, I've been waiting a long time to pick up this drone. In fact, I've had the Mavic 2 since it was launched, and I held off. I didn't get the Mavic 3. I was tempted by the Air 3S, and every time I was just like, you know what? I know something better is coming. Something is going to bring all this together, and it's going to be a real true upgrade from the Mavic 2 Pro. And with the 4, we certainly have got that. It is a very, very powerful drone with huge amounts of capability, but to be honest, I think for a lot of people, it's actually overkill. Unless you're using a drone a lot, there's a few things that I think would become frustrating and actually would get in the way of you being creative. So why is this drone such a good option for professionals? Well, let's start off with that image quality. It looks absolutely incredible. Without doubt, the main sensor especially has an incredible image quality, huge amount of dynamic range, and more than enough for any situation I could realistically ever think of. Of course, we're always chasing stats, we always want more, but in reality, it is more than enough. And I've been dealing with the Mavic 2 for years, so having all this extra dynamic range, all this extra color information, and having all that extra sharpness, it's a huge upgrade from what I was using before. And I was happy with what I was getting with the Mavic 2, hence why I held on to it for such a long time. But this certainly is a big upgrade. Now, a big upgrade from the Mavic 3 Pro, and a big reason why I didn't go for that drone, is they've now standardized the picture profiles across all of the different cameras. So it doesn't matter whether you're using the 1x zoom or the 2.5x or the 6x zoom, you're going to get the same picture profiles, which is incredibly useful for matching the image when you jump between different scenes. Now, of course, it's not perfect. You've got different sensors and different lenses in each of these, so of course there is going to be a different look depending on the camera that you use. However, because you can now use D-Log across all of them, or D-Log-M if you wish, you are going to get a much closer image between the different lenses, much better than before. Now, speaking of those two lenses, they are really good, but I think you can be a little bit tempted to overuse them because they are there and because they are so good. They are still a downgrade though from the main camera. The 2.5x I think is probably the most useful out of the zoom options. 6 is interesting, but it really is limiting on what you can use it for. When you're zooming in that far, despite how good drones have got, and the Mavic 4 is excellent in terms of flying, you are going to see a lot of movement. In fact, you can really see it sort of bouncing up and down in the image, even if you're just trying to do something quite subtle and small. So you almost need to go quite fast to get rid of that when you're using the 6x. However, of course, if you do that, it's going to be a bit dangerous because you're zoomed right in on a 6x. That's not a good idea while going fast. But also, the parallax movement is just going to be too much. It's going to be too fast, and I don't think it's going to be an enjoyable experience for your viewers unless you really are going for some sort of action scene. So with all that said, for me, the 6x is great when you really do need it. It's nice to get a real close-up shot. So actually I would have the drone relatively close to someone and then just use it to create a bit of shallow depth of field. That's where actually it's quite nice to use. So if you say you've got a mid shot on someone or a head to toe shot on a 6x looks really nice. That over zoomed in landscapes for me is more beneficial. The 2.5x I think is a bit more broader use for it. There's more situations I can see it being used for. And then there's that 1x, which of course produces the best image quality, and you've got the aperture control. And in reality, that's the one you should be using most of the time. Now, I've actually got to really love the internal storage. It's one of those things that I said is a stupid idea. And of course, you want to be able to take out your memory card after each flight, do a copy and all that. That said, having it built in with super fast transfers is such a nice upgrade, going from a drone where you just use micro SD cards. The speed is incredibly fast, and what's really cool is you don't actually need to have the drone powered up to be able to use it as a mass storage device. I don't know if that was the case with the Mavic 3 Pro, but I thought you'd have to turn the whole thing on every time, and that would of course be a pain to do. That's not the case with the Mavic 4 Pro. You can just plug it in, it recognises it as an SSD on your laptop, and of course you can do a quick transfer. So I think that does open it up to being much more useful for a lot of people than I would have first expected. I haven't personally used the All-Eye codec that they've got built in there. I'm sure it's great, and actually I think it is a better option than ProRes personally, because I actually have always requested when someone shot on a Mavic 3 Pro that they didn't use the ProRes because the file sizes were ridiculous. However, the All-Eye codec, I don't know how much of a difference there really is, and if it's really worth the extra storage, a bit like what ProRes was. And of course the disadvantage not having ProRes is that for certain clients who will request it, that option isn't there anymore. There's an interesting quirk in the software. Maybe this will get changed once there's been future updates, but MakeArt now spotted that you can actually get a little bit extra dynamic range if you shoot in D-Log-M and then use auto ISO. It's really strange, but it does seem to work. It does seem to give you just that little bit more dynamic range, even compared to shooting D-Log. Now, when it comes to D-Log-M versus D-Log, I kind of prefer D-Log-M still. All these shots you're mostly seeing here in this video is shot on D-Log, just because I guess that is the professional choice to go with. That said, I do think D-Log-M is still easier to work with, and you can get nicer results much quicker working with it. And if it's going to give you more dynamic range, maybe it's the way you should go. Now, something that I've really appreciated coming from the Mavic 2 Pro to the Mavic 4 Pro is having the view of your cameras actually on the screen. That is so incredibly useful. I was shocked how handy that would be, especially when you're zoomed in. It really does make a difference and gives you real confidence in being able to see what's around you. What's nice, as you change different directions, go up or down, it will actually switch to the correct camera for the direction you are heading in. And that is really useful when you're flying and you want to make sure everything around you is completely safe. Now, before I go on to talk about the controller, I really should mention how awesome the battery life of this drone is. It is insane. I don't think you realise how incredible it is. You don't really need 3 batteries anymore because of how good one single battery lasts. Maybe I just got so used to the Mavic 2 and sort of its limited battery life and the expectation of how long a drone can go up for. But with the Mavic 4, you can literally leave it hovering for a long time and you still have plenty of battery life. Often I'll be looking and I look down and think, oh, I've still got 70% battery, even though I thought I'd be near finished. And what this really opens up, it's not necessarily to do way more shooting from the one battery, which of course you could do. But for me, what makes it really useful from a professional standpoint is you get to actually sit and wait with the drone in the air. A good example of this was a shoot I did a couple of months ago where we were shooting a tender for a super yacht, and the tender had to go out and we had to kind of bob around, find the right angle, find the right space for the tender, and of course we had to get the drone over there as well. Now, normally in the past, you'd be panicking about your battery life, so you wouldn't take the drone up until you were absolutely sure you're all ready to go, and then you would really limit your shoot time because you wanted to give yourself plenty of time to get back and land on the yacht. That wasn't the case with this drone. Because the battery life was so good, I was able to go up and actually hover and watch them set up and figure out my angles and all that, so that rather than wasting time or trying to coordinate it perfectly, I could just go up and confidently know that the drone was going to be absolutely safe. Even when I came back, I still had plenty of battery life. I think I had about 40% battery life as I came back, which meant landing was super safe. I could take my time, I could figure out the best angle. If there's a bit of wind, I could just sit and wait. I didn't have to rush it. And that, I think, is such a professional feature that is hugely underrated. I could see if you're doing like a live event or a show and maybe got to do a live broadcast from the drone, that's another situation where you need to hover for a long period of time just for that 3 or 4 second shot. And that's exactly what was going on here. Having that spare hovering time is a huge professional upgrade over other drones in the past. Now the controller is really impressive. I've gone for the 7-inch Pro controller. It is a wonderful screen, really bright, easy to see outdoors, and having that extra couple of inches really does help actually see the full image, and especially when you've got all the stuff going on the screen. Is it perfect? No. I mean, it is a bit big and bulky. It is a lot of weight to it. It adds a lot of size, and it just means that it's a lot more awkward to carry around, but of course it's so quick to set up, so you're swapping one thing for another there. The battery life on it is huge. It keeps going on forever. I often think, once again, that surely I need to charge up the controller now, but suddenly realise I've still got 75% battery left, which again is a brilliant thing to have in a professional setup. Things like that you really want. Long battery life is really critical. Of course, it's got all the outputs as well, so if you need to do a live broadcast or send it to another monitor, that's cool. It's got HDMI out there. And as a general controller, it is nice to use. Now the sticks are a little bit odd. They're not as smooth to use as other drones in the past from DJI. I think it's because of the mechanism that they're using to flip down the screen, which is cool, so you'd have to screw them in each time. But that does create a little bit of a learning adjustment. I don't think I'm quite there yet with this drone. I still think I'm trying to figure out how to actually get the best out of it, because there's still definitely some moments where I feel like I'm being a bit jittery or not getting that kind of smooth movement manually that I could do in the past with my Mavic 2 Pro. Now I touched on a couple of the negatives already, but I think the big one, which is what I already mentioned about the controller, but it goes for the drone as well, and that is its size and weight. Now this of course isn't a problem if you're doing this professionally all the time, but I could see it being a big problem if you are someone who only uses a drone occasionally. If it's something you bring along just in case, or if it's something that you want to do and you do as a hobby and you just feel like you want the best drone that's out there right now, I wouldn't go for this drone because of its size and weight. Partly that's down to regulations. It really is limiting where you can fly it because of its weight. It pushes into a different category. But even if that's not a problem, it's just the extra weight of carrying it around. When I took it to Switzerland, I had it in my bag with me and did a lot of hiking and everything, because I thought, oh, this would be an amazing place to test this drone out. But in all honesty, I kind of wish I just had the Mini 3 on me, because in a situation like that, carrying around, lugging around a drone of that size with the batteries, with the charging block, as well as that large controller is a bit too much. It's one of those things, again, that on a professional job where every kind of bit of quality matters, you don't care, and it covers you for that. And I say the battery life and everything more than makes up for the inconvenience of its size and weight. That said, if I was only occasionally doing some drone flying, or I was doing it as a hobby, I wouldn't go for this drone. I would go for the Air 3 instead, because of that smaller size and more flexibility that you actually have with it. It is also annoying that you don't have aperture control on the other lenses. It's something that I still haven't got quite used to. You know, you'll be going on the main wide lens and you'll be adjusting your aperture, then you think, oh, I need to zoom in, get a close-up of this, and suddenly your exposures are completely different because, of course, the aperture is fixed on that. You can slightly make that easier and better with ND filters from the likes of Freewell, where they've got split NDs, so they're a different strength at the top and the bottom. This certainly does help, and it gets you much more in the ballpark. But even then, if you're adjusting your aperture up and down because, I don't know, weather's changing, clouds are moving in and out, and you suddenly switch to that fixed aperture of the 2.5 or 6 times zoom, suddenly the image looks very different, and you're going to have to quickly adjust your shutter speed to be able to try and correct it. And that's still something that I haven't quite got used to, and it is a bit of a frustration. I know it would be hard to do for DJI, but maybe one day in a fully professional Mavic 3 Pro, it would be cool if we had adjustable aperture that sort of synced together across all of the different cameras. I also find it a bit annoying that you have to stop the recording when you want to switch between lenses. I get that it would probably stop and start as you switch between them. There must be some technical reason for that. But it is annoying that I have to manually actually stop the recording, then click the button to change the focal length, and then hit record once again. It's just a little bit fiddly, and when you're mid-shoot and you're thinking, oh, I just want to grab this on a slightly different focal length, it'd be nice if it just kind of carried on recording in the same recording, or at the very least stopped and start recording for you so you don't have to do it yourself. The other thing that can be annoying is the fact that the wide-angle lens is actually a 28mm equivalent, so it's a slightly more tighter lens than the other drones we've seen from DJI in the past. I'm not quite sure why they've gone with this, because often when you're shooting from a drone you do want to get as wide as possible to get as much in the scene as possible, but with this one you do need to go a bit further back for capturing certain things. That might be fine a lot of the time, but if you're already hitting sort of the limits of your height that you can fly if you're doing a top-down, or if you are trying to capture something in a slightly tighter space, like for example, you just want to do a quick crane shot of a building and you've got to get it within the actual space that you have, then this could really be a problem, and more of a problem than drones in the past. The only thing I would also say is, given its size and everything and its weight, why are we still dealing with micro SD cards in our drones? I wish they had put either SD cards, or even better, maybe CF Express Type B cards in here, just so it standardizes everything across all my camera gear, but also just so you got those quicker transfer speeds. It's obviously going to be a bit bigger, but the drone's got bigger anyway, so I'm sure there is now space to be able to squeeze a CF Express Type B reader writer in there, and that really would, I think, just make the whole process a bit nicer than using micro SD cards. They're fine, of course, for the tiny drones like the Mini, but I think when you're getting up to professional drones, we should be expecting a better media format. And as great as the internal recording is, I do think having professional cards like CF Express Type B would be a big upgrade. Do I recommend people consider picking this drone up? It depends on what you do. If you are someone who works full-time as a drone operator, this is a must-buy. In fact, I don't understand why you haven't already gone out and bought one. If you're someone who does a lot of drone filming, or it's a really important part of what you do, e.g. someone like myself, then I think this is a great option, especially if you're upgrading from a Mavic 2 Pro. So if you're skipping a generation, this is a major upgrade. If you already have a Mavic 3, it might be a harder sell to go for the Mavic 4. It is a big upgrade. You're going to get a lot of nice new features. That controller is really good as well. But you probably don't need to do a big upgrade. You're probably absolutely fine with the Mavic 3 Pro that you already own. If you are coming from the likes of an Air 3S, this is going to be a huge upgrade, but you will feel that extra weight and size, and that may frustrate you quite a bit. If you're someone that only uses a drone of this size professionally once in a while, or you're just a hobbyist and you just want the biggest and the best, then just don't get this drone. You will be frustrated by its size and weight, by its restrictions and everything that comes along with it, and you'd be much better off just going for the Air 3S instead. In fact, you'd be better off getting the Air 3S and the Mini 4 Pro and maybe the Mini 5 Pro if that's coming out in the near future. I think having two of those drones would give you far more flexibility, far better options, and you won't really be missing out too much from the Mavic 4 Pro if it's something you only do occasionally. And you'll be saving a lot of money, because that's the one big thing with this drone. It costs a hell of a lot.